I don't believe that landscape lighting is a luxury item that people want. Like, I believe they need it, and it's not just like the cool factor, like, oh, look how cool these trees look. Like, what does it do for them? Well, it adds security to their property. It helps them feel safer at night. How does it affect their mental health, right? I mean, it does a lot of different things. And so if I really truly care about people, like, I'm doing a disservice by not overcoming those objections. Like, if they're like, I got to think about it, I'm like, cool, all right, see you later. It's like, then I'm not convinced. I don't believe enough in myself and my offering.
Hello, welcome to Outer Spaces, a podcast dedicated to empowering landscapers, hardscapers, and outdoor living professionals. I'm Joshua Gillow. My mission through this show is to create a powerful resource for you, someone who is striving to grow their company well past the $1 million line, but might not have all the tools and processes to do so. Here in Outer Spaces, we are passionate about breaking the chains of small mindsets and helping contractors just like you take control of their businesses and their lives. With nearly 3 decades of experience designing, selling, and building six-figure outdoor living spaces, I've made all the mistakes. Starting with $0 in my pocket, and through the grace of God and a ton of hard work, I now own multiple businesses that afford me the time with my family and the lifestyle I've always dreamed of. So join me as I share what I've learned along my journey, strategies, and other contractor success stories right here on the Outer Spaces podcast. Now, let's get on with the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Outer Spaces podcast. This is your host, Joshua Gillow. In the next 4 weeks, we're going to be working with Ryan Lee. He's an entrepreneur, a speaker, consultant, coach, father, and husband. He's an entrepreneur from Salt Lake City, Utah, and has started several multi-million-dollar businesses, specifically in the landscape lighting space. So we're going to have him on the show, and we're going to discuss a couple of really solid sales conversations and topics. We're going to start with how to handle top sales objections. He's going to bring in a lot of the stuff he's learned through coaching and mentoring his students over the years and all the years that he was in business. Also, how to increase your price, how to get ask what you're worth and to get paid what you're worth. We're also going to have talk about how to increase the number of leads, of quality qualified leads, how to pre-qualify, and how to increase your closing rate. So those are the things that we're going to talk about as topics over the next few weeks. And guys, if you are struggling in any way with any of those topics, we're going to go deep into those topics. So please stick around and listen. Each week is going to build on the next one. So thanks for listening. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Today, I have Ryan Lee on the show, and he's going to be with us for the next 4 weeks. And we're going to talk a lot about sales. This guy is an expert in sales and marketing. He specializes in the landscape lighting world. And I felt like it'd be a perfect symbiotic relationship, his mind and mine as well, together in the way we see sales and marketing, and to be able to reach out and to help as many people as we can. So this week, we're going to focus on how to handle top sales objections, followed by how to increase your price. I know that's a big one for guys out there. How to increase the number of qualified leads that you get. And then we're going to wrap up the 4 weeks with how to increase your closing rate. So Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm a big fan of you. So it's exciting to be here. And thanks a ton. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. I'm a big fan of what you're doing, and I love seeing your events and all the great stuff you're doing for our industry as well. So I'm very excited to dive into this conversation and to help as many listeners as we possibly can on these subjects. So first off, I want to jump into, who are you? For anyone listening that's never heard of Ryan Lee, I want to get the listeners a sense of who they're listening to. So Ryan, who are you?
Exactly. I'm still trying to figure that out, Josh. So Ryan Lee, born and raised in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I had this crazy idea to start a window cleaning business to raise money to get married. And it wasn't even a business. I hope the IRS isn't listening, but I was just like knocking doors, trying to make money, as a poor college student. Right. And that was my like introduction into entrepreneurship. And I just had a blast doing it. We made enough money to get married, not enough to like go on a nice honeymoon, but enough to like buy a car, Nice. And through that process, I convinced my brother to start a legit window cleaning company. And at the time he was in Texas. And then fast forward, I finished college. I was super proud of that at the time because I was the first one in my family to like get a degree. And we won't get in the debate of like schooling and should you do it and all that stuff. But I did it. I had a marketing degree. I got an MBA. And after that, I was like, man, I really want to go back to like knocking doors and cleaning windows. It was so fun. And my brother like I literally like was moving down to Texas to buy a house. And when I went down there, he told me, he goes, you know what? I also got into holiday lighting and I got into landscape lighting. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, what is landscape lighting? He's like, well, we light people's homes and the trees, and these two jobs that we did were $4,000. I was like, are you what? Like someone paid you $4,000 to light their house? Like that's crazy. And this was in 2007. And I was like, dude, if we're gonna partner up, I'd much rather sell a $4,000 lighting job than a $250 window cleaning job. And I didn't know much at the time about. Well, I didn't know anything about lighting, but I was just like, if I'm gonna do something with my time, I'd rather make more. Right? That's all I knew at the time.
Right.
And literally, like with that spark, that idea, we launched Majestic Outdoor Lighting in Texas, and that's kind of how I learned all about sales and pricing and all the stuff that we're going to be talking about. So I ended up selling that business in 2019. And then the last about 4 years now, I started Landscape Lighting Secrets, which is actually the only coaching program in the world to help people bolt on landscape lighting to their existing offerings. So I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, Ryan. And it's amazing. Our journeys aren't all that different. I was the first as well to graduate, post high school education. And what was interesting is the landscape lighting was something that we bolted on our company years ago, and I loved it. I still love it. I think lighting is so important to have clients not have lighting in their space, and for it to go dark at night when they could be using it is crazy. And just the beauty that they can enjoy from inside to out in the evenings. It's just such a great thing to add on. So I'm very excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm addicted to landscape lighting. Like I'm crazy addicted. And you'll see some of that come out when we're talking about sales and the belief behind it, because the things that you mentioned are like, these people spend a ton of money on their hardscape, their patios, their outdoor living, all this stuff. But like most of them are working during the day to be able to afford all this stuff. Right. And then they get home, it gets dark, they can't even use it. Right. And lighting's very powerful. It helps people feel better about themselves. And even if it's freezing cold outside, you can do this at your own house, if you have your shades open and there's no light outside, your windows turn into a mirror, and all you do is see yourself. Like, and unless people are like really obsessed with themselves, like it's not that cool. And so when you add landscape lighting and now you have this portrait outside, it really extends the indoor living space. So there's just so many benefits to it. And I'm crazy.
No, you're not crazy, dude. I mean, you ought to see my place when it comes to lights. I have lights in the trees from the ground. I've got line voltage, low voltage. I've got all that because when I look out of these big windows in the back of my house, I want to see something gorgeous out there. Mm-hmm. I don't have an alarm in the bedroom. I don't wake up to an alarm. I wake up just when God says go, right? That's what it is for me. Yeah. I get up, but when I look out the window, I have one timer set on one of the big trees in the back to turn on at 4:30 in the morning. So if I look out, I'm like, well, tree's lit, time to go. If the tree's not lit, I'm like, I could probably sleep a little longer. That's so awesome. That's my alarm clock, man. It's a lit tree. I wanted to share that with you.
That's killer. I love that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So, man, I want to jump in today and focus on, what are sales objections? And as salespeople, a lot of us, we started businesses. I started a business, I was the salesperson and the installer and the bookkeeper and all of the different roles. So the question is not the question is, but really when it comes to sales objections, I never had time to really understand what they were and if they were good or bad. So I'd love to hear your perspective on what sales objections are.
Yeah. I mean, if you're new or if you don't have a lot of experience, sales objections are like the scariest thing ever. That's what they are, because you're like, well, I need this sell. Like I need to pay like my mortgage and stuff and feed my family. Right. But as you get more experience, you realize it's just basically an obstacle. It's just a barrier between where the person is now and where they want to be. And honestly, like it's just a lack of understanding and value and a lot of different things. So as I progressed in my experience and learning about sales, it becomes easy to overcome obstacles because again, when I say I'm crazy about landscape lighting, I really am. Like, I don't believe that landscape lighting is a luxury item that people want. Like, I believe they need it, and it's not just like the cool factor. Like, oh, look how cool these trees look. Like, what does it do for them? Well, it adds security to their property. It helps them feel safer at night. How does it affect their mental health? Right. I mean, it does a lot of different things. And so if I really truly care about people, like I'm doing a disservice by not overcoming those objections. Like if they're like, "Yeah, I got to think about it," I'm like, "Cool, all right, see you later." It's like then I'm not convinced. I don't believe enough in myself and my offering,
Yeah.
and I don't care enough about people. Like, and I'm like, and I kind of joke around a little bit, like, unless you hate people, like, continue to let them make decisions that are poor, right? It's our
Yeah.
obligation as salespeople, as professionals, to guide these people and help them make the right decision.
Ryan, I couldn't agree with you more. And the one word I love that you just used is the word guide, right? So many people in sales, and I know I was guilty of this for most of my career, was thinking that I had to put on a show in order to get a yes. And I had to think of all the things they could possibly say and try to either outsmart them or, well, manipulate them into saying yes. Like,
Right.
how do I do that? How can I be the best at what they think they need so that I can get a yes so I can make money because I got bills to pay, right? It wasn't until I made that shift into being a guide that it shifted everything for me. So when did that happen for you? And how did that change your approach to sales when you became a guide?
I don't know that it was one specific experience, but for me, at first I started just like you. It felt like, and I think that's why people think sales is a dirty word, is because they have been manipulated by somebody. Maybe they felt forced to make a decision in the moment that they weren't quite comfortable with. So some of a lot of the things we do are based on our past and our experiences. And for me, I always was decent at sales because people liked me, and that's a
Mhm.
huge thing. Like if people like you, they're going to be more likely to find a way to work with you. If you have a bad first impression, they don't like you. Like you got a ton of objections to overcome at that point, right?
For sure.
So I always did decent, but it wasn't until I really started taking business serious and started like finding like, okay, what are the cracks in my foundation? Like, what are the holes? Like, what am I missing here? Like, why is that person doing better than me? Like, I should be further along. And I started evaluating my process and really getting introspective. And that's when I started realizing like, wait, like they're not buying for the reasons that I thought they were buying. They don't. These objections are not real. When they say they have to think about it, when they say they can't afford it, I started realizing like these aren't true. I went to I won this trip because we bought so much product from this manufacturer, and they took us
Mhm.
to Vail to go skiing. And I grew up in Utah, so I grew up skiing here, but like the local mountain is like cheap. They have like one restaurant. Vail is
Yeah.
like luxury. I mean, like it costs $1,000 a day to put your kid in private ski school, and like that's what
Hmm.
everyone does. Lift tickets were like 250 a day. Meals were crazy. People were spending like 30, 40, $50,000 a week just to have like these 3-bedroom condos, and my mind was blown. I was like, wait, I remember my clients telling me that they went to Val. The same people who told me they had to think about it, the same people that
Yeah.
told me that they couldn't afford it, the same people that had all these objections. And I'm like, they're freaking liars. And I've heard the phrase now, buyers are liars, right? And I'm like, it's true, they are liars. And so again, I think I just learned all this together over a period of time. But once you realize that like they just don't know enough to make a qualified decision. So I want to
Yeah.
guide them through the things that they do need to know to make that proper decision.
I love that. And so, whose responsibility is it to give them the information they need to make a great decision? Whose responsibility is it? Them looking on Google and trying to figure it out, or is it the guide's responsibility to help them see what's possible?
Yeah, it's absolutely as the guide, as the professional, our responsibility. So, I'll probably refer to lighting a lot, but like if someone calls me and they're like, well, okay, we want a light here, here, and here, and they say they want like 5 lights on their property,
Hmm.
like I could be like, okay, do what the customer says, do what they want, but it's like that's going to look terrible. Like there's no
Yeah.
way I'm going to let them make that bad decision, and they might be okay with it because they don't know. Like I'm the guy who has years of experience. I've gone to lighting training. I've learned about design. I've learned about installation. I know because I've listened to clients in the past that 5 lights
Hmm.
on this property is going to look terrible, and they're going to be. In fact, I had a lady one time who thought that. Um, a One of my designers, okay, he went out and sold this project, and she was completely underwhelmed. and she was really upset, didn't even want to pay anything for it, right? And I actually went and met with her to try to like figure out like what's going on here. And she said, well, it doesn't look anything like your website, anything look like the pictures I saw in the magazine. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't, because he gave you a design that had like twice as many lights, and you said no to that. So he value engineered it and brought up with this. And that's the problem. And it's easy to like point fingers and get mad at her and be like, this was your fault. But honestly, it was our fault. Like he should have done a better job explaining, like, if we do that, here's going to be the end result. And we don't want to take the blame for that, because it's our job as a professional to guide them into that right decision.
I love that. And it's so true, because think about it. Homeowners don't do, I keep saying this all the time, homeowners do outdoor living once or twice in a lifetime. There's no way they could have the perspective that we have. We see it every single day. We've seen clients do exactly what you say, go from 50 lights to 10 lights and expect to have the same result because they want to save money. And if a salesman's commission based and they're just care about the transactions, constantly just moving money through the company, they're not going to get the results that they're looking for, because they need to stop as the guide and say, look, Mrs. Jones, I understand why you want to do that. Empathy first, right? I understand why you might want to do that. But if we do that, here will be the result. Is that something that you're willing to live with? And that's our job as guides, to be able to help people, save them from themselves at times, because everyone's looking to pinch pennies. They all want to save money and put it into something else. They don't want to spend more than they should. But who determines how much they should spend? You know, that for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 at Vail, is that crazy when you can go to a local mountain for maybe $300? Right. There's all these values, right? But at the same time, it's our job as guides is to make sure we can help our clients from making decisions that are going to haunt them for years to come.
Yeah.
And that's our job. Even if it's a hard conversation, guys listening out there, and ladies, you know, instead of just trying to sell people stuff, stop. Take your time, get to know them, and find out what they truly need, want, and desire, not just what you want to sell them, especially with lighting. Don't just say, I got a package of 10 lights. This will make your house look brighter. Right?
Wow,
you're right,
that's what I wanted.
Brighter. Yeah, I wanted it brighter. So
I love that. What you said is just genius. I mean, you're really not selling them anything. You're helping them get more than what they even knew was possible. Like it's such a powerful thing when you can like get your mindset to that point. Overcoming objections is not like, I don't even think it's overcoming objections. It's like me helping them get further along than they thought was even possible.
And you know what? Getting a no is a great thing. We're not trying to avoid no's in a sales process. We're trying to get there quick. We need to find out where the guardrails are and find out what is holding our clients back from moving forward with something that we know in our heart of hearts is going to make their lives better. And if you're listening out there and you don't feel that your service or your product is making your clients' lives better, why the hell are you selling it? Why are you out there trying to connect people with it? If you're not passionate about what you're doing, then get out. Find something you are, because then it makes everything a lot simpler. Because then when you face someone that says to you, we need to think about it. Okay. Or it's too expensive. Okay. Or I need to talk to my spouse. That's great. Those are all objections. We as professionals need to be able to guide our clients through what's going to come up in them naturally. And if you're doing a good job in the beginning by listening instead of talking, you won't have that objection come up as often, because clients truly just want to be listened to. They want to know that you understand what they need, want, and desire, not that you're trying to sell them something. We've all had that experience at the used car dealership. You walk into a place like, so what can I sell you today? And you're like, how do you even know I'm buying? Right. And you never asked me, like, what do I need? Like, caravan versus a truck versus fast versus slow and economical versus what's the price point? Like, none of those things. It's just like, what can I sell you today? That's what it feels like. I know they wouldn't say that, but that's what it feels like.
That's what you
How many
hear,
of you guys, that's what you hear, right? You walk in, you're already guarded walking in. And most people do when they walk into a sales conversation, they're guarded because they're afraid that someone's going to try to bamboozle them or force them into a transaction. So they come in naturally guarded. It's human nature. Now, when you come in and disarm them by asking them great questions about listening really well, that guard comes down and people are much more giving of information, including that feared budget conversation, right?
Yeah.
Once they feel that they can trust you and that you actually care about what they may need, not just what you want to sell them, it shifts. But we've got to be careful as salespeople because we love to hear ourselves talk, don't we?
I have a podcast, so I'm guilty. Okay.
I was just thinking, I'm talking a lot right now, and I'm trying to talk about not talking.
Guilty as charged. But here's what I love what you said, because asking questions it disarms them, like you said, but it really helps really uncover, like, what is the need here? What is the problem? And you hear like, oh, as entrepreneurs, all we do is solve problems. And you're like, we do? I thought we installed landscaping. I thought we did hardscaping. I thought we built outdoor patios. I thought we did landscape lighting. But we're actually solving a problem. Like, there is a need. Unless you like knocked on their door and held them at gunpoint, like, there is a need. Like, they called you, they invited you over, right? And so by asking those questions, there's this gap. And right now the gap is really small. They're like, this is where we're at. This is where we want to be. And we think this is where they're at. They don't have a patio. They want a patio. Like, if that's the only thing, that's going to be a really hard thing to sell and be like, okay, give me $100,000, right? But if you're like, okay, well, tell me more. Like, why now? You've been in the house 8 years. Why did you wait 8 years to call us? Like, did you just find out that outdoor living is a thing, right? And you start peeling back the onion, and you find out that they're buying for different reasons than you even thought. Okay. And a lot of times people want to spend money. Take my Vel example. Like, they could have stayed at the local mountain and saved $49,700, right? But they like to spend money because the way it makes them feel. So who are we to take away that opportunity for these people just because we wouldn't go spend an extra $49,700 at Vel? Doesn't mean they're not going to. And so we can't be that person that makes that financial decision for them. We have to ask those questions. Why now? What's driving this decision, right? Have you considered using somebody else? You know, there's other people in town that are half our price. And it's like,
you would ask a question like that? I mean, oh my God, isn't that like the nail in the coffin? Like, nobody wants that question. And why would you lead with that, Ryan? That's crazy.
It is the nail in the coffin because it literally changes it. And all of a sudden they're selling themselves on like, no, we've done our research. We saw your 5-star reviews. We know we actually have 3 friends that have used you. Oh, wow. Now we're building this case, you know, and it's not you selling anyone anything. They're the ones convincing themselves to use you.
I always say that I'm probably the worst salesman you'll ever meet. And I say that as a sales coach because I don't like salespeople. I like guides. I like people who actually care and take their time and get to know people. Instead of going out to 15 projects this week, I'll go out to 3 and I'll get to know those people deep. And we'll move each one of those projects. Those clients will say yes, and we'll move on. That's the thing. Instead of trying to go after volume, it's a matter of going after value. And how can you add more value than anybody else that they're talking to? Because we always have to assume that they're talking to more than one. So why are we hiding that fact? To your point earlier, like, hey, we aren't the cheapest out there. If you're looking for the cheapest or the fastest, don't work with us. It's not going to work. But people aren't going to call if they've seen your website and it's fairly decent and it's worded well and has great pictures. They obviously know they're going to be paying for it. And those same clients that are going to buy that lighting or that patio or that outdoor living space are the same ones that would pay for Vel as well, because people aren't buying logically. They're buying emotionally. And if we can't tap into the emotion of why they're actually making this purchase, then you're going to get objections all day long. They're going to have to talk to their spouse. They're going to tell you, you know what, it's too much money. But to your point, they'll spend $49,700 more to go to Vel for an emotional fix than they will actually, do something else, go to the local mountain, because it makes them feel better about themselves. So my point in saying all of this is to make sure that when you hit an objection, it's only a starting point. It's an indicator that you're not fully engaging your client in a way that they need to. They're trying to find a way out. And now it's your chance. Well, it could be a chance, or it could also be a big problem, but it's your chance to figure out why that is and start unpacking it. And if it's too much, simple questions, say, compared to what? If they have other comparable prices, then they'll tell you at that point.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I think people would be surprised if they shadowed you on a, sales call. Is like, the objection isn't this huge thing that happens at the end. We were talking about this a little bit before. It's like, the objections just kind of naturally come up, and you're overcoming them as they go. I remember when I first got into sales, I actually sold software, and I was like, it was so gross. It was icky. I hated overcoming objections. And that's what led me to this process of just like overcoming them over time. I'm like, no, I want to get through all the objections so that when I get to the end, and I'm like, which option works best for you? They literally just choose the middle option, which is the one I thought they were going to choose anyway. And then we
Yep.
just get a check and we just get on the schedule. And it's awesome. And they're like, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for coming over today. Thank you for letting us give you a deposit check. Like, it's such a good feeling. And that comes through that process of overcoming the objections early on, instead of like just be like, all right, here I go, sales pitch, hit play, and then you do the sales pitch, and then you find out they have all these questions and all these other things, and it's just so much easier to do it throughout that process. I think people would be surprised. Like you and I, we don't have those end moments that are super awkward because people are just ready to say yes.
You're exactly right. And the way we can do that is because we have a process in place. We know what our clients are thinking. We understand that because we've done the research. We've been working for years. I know at Yes Express, we've been working for the last 30 years trying to figure this out. And we understand where clients, as they go through a process of making decisions, where they are in their sales cycle, and those decisions that are being made, if we can have a sense of what an objection might be, what if we would kind of bring that objection, be the ones that bring that objection out? Is there anything that could threaten this project for you? Oh, well, price could be a problem. If it wasn't for price, is there anything else that could threaten this project for you? And have them go through it. They can say it out loud. And all these objections that are typically like a volcano stored up, ready to explode at the end. What if we just let some pressure out throughout the entire conversation? So by the end, there is nothing that they can push back against. They are either ready to go, or we're giving them a graceful exit and pointing them in a direction that's going to best serve them. If it's not us, that's okay. So if you're not working through a process that is allowing for that pressure to be released, and that the resistance to subdue and to just be like letting go, letting them have conversations that they know other contractors are not asking them question wise, you can then be that higher value. And then numbers really don't matter as much. I mean, everybody has a number that they're not going to spend more than. Everyone has a number. But at the same time, that number is adjustable based on how much value you can bring and how many problems you can solve for them, because that's ultimately what we are. We just happen to do it in the outdoor space.
Yeah, I love it, man. Well said.
Thank you. So is there anything else you have on handling sales objections you want to drop on our listeners here before we wrap up?
I think a lot of people ask me, well, what do I do when they say this? And it's like, well, one thing that helped me is, and maybe I can just encourage people, like, it's not a flip of a switch. Like, you're not going to listen to this podcast and then go out and like be this perfect salesperson, closer, overcome an objection, or like, it takes practice. So don't beat yourself up when you go and try to do it and it doesn't work. Like, just find the one thing that you can improve upon the next time. And that's what I did. I would sit in my truck and I would just write down, man, why didn't they move forward? Like, and maybe they didn't tell me no yet, but like, what could I have done different? And so one thing that I've found to be super helpful, we do this on our coaching calls, is like, let's say you have an opportunity maybe today, and you go out and it's super awkward and you didn't do anything but we told you to do. And then you get to the end and they're like, well, we got to think about it. And then you're like, oh, this is that volcano that he was talking about. It's exploding. Like, one thing that is super helpful is just to like repeat back what they said, And if I can encourage you to just ask one additional question, don't worry about closing the deal. Don't worry about making money. Don't worry about like getting the result that you think you wanted. Just get better at what you're doing. And so if Josh, if you're like, it's just, we got to think about it. If you can just say, you got to think about it, and then just be quiet for like as long as you can, which is like 10 seconds is going to feel like 10 minutes at this point, because now you're putting it back in their court and you're allowing them to explain, yeah, we got to think about it. Right. And if they don't give you the guts, sometimes they're like, yeah, we got to think about it. We got 3 other guys. And then they just like spew out and they tell you all these objections that you didn't get to earlier on. And it's crazy. I've asked that one question, or let's say they're like, yeah, we got to think about it. And then it's back on you and you're like, I don't know what to say. I'll just say, what is it that you got to think about? Right. And I've seen husband and wives where one of them is like, we got to think about it. I'm ready to go. Like, what do you got to think about? And they now have this conversation that they need to have. Everyone does actually have to talk. And if you haven't given them space to do it yet, it's happening. Right. And I've had deals that will close just based on one additional question. It's crazy. And you think,
It
well,
is.
yeah, but I didn't do all these things that Josh told me to do. And this is the volcano. But that one additional question, it's not going to close every deal. But I guarantee somebody out there listening to this is going to have that experience and go, oh my gosh, it totally worked. I sucked at sales. I did it all wrong, but I asked that one question. And that will give you some confidence the next time. And practice that for a while. Just one question, one question, one question. And then eventually you'll get so comfortable that that's so normal that's the new norm. Then you can ask 2 questions, and then you can ask 3, and just keep asking questions. And that helps me. It helps my clients. It just gives you courage to be like one extra question. And it usually starts with just mirroring back like the thing that they said. It's too much money. It's too much money. And let them go from there.
With a good curiosity tone to it. It's too much money?
Yeah.
Right. There's a curiosity undertone there, and then leave it blank. I love how you said that, because that is so true. It's mirroring 101, right? And it's like, and just speak silent and just look at them.
So
they will talk. It is hard. It is hard in the beginning, but after a while, you're just sitting there like, I'm not going to talk.
Yeah.
So
I'm
it's your
literally
turn.
not saying anything.
And they will feel the pressure to start explaining their position. And when they do, the information that comes out is absolute gold. And not so you can manipulate them, but so you can guide them. Maybe you aren't the best solution. Maybe your budget that you've talked about is way over what they can afford right now. Maybe they need to save up for it. There's a lot of maybes out there. Let's not guess, because assumption will always screw you up, because you're always wrong when you assume something. Yet we do it all the time, especially in sales. Well, they said we got to think about it. I must have messed up. No, the real reason why is because their dog just went to the hospital. It cost $4,000 for something that needed to be done. They're tapped out this month. They planned on moving ahead with you, but they couldn't. So they don't want to look like an idiot. So they just say we have to think about it to buy themselves time. If you said, think about it, and all of a sudden they said, well, yeah, our dog just got sick. And we got like, holy crap. Like that, to your point, one question can change it all. And you don't have to change it all in a day. Just keep adding. So I love that advice, Ryan. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries. And honestly, it relates back to like belief, because if you really believe in yourself and your offering, and that you are the best person to do the thing for them that day, and if you don't, like, this is really hard to do, but once the belief is there, like you feel bad for not, like, if they don't move forward, the likelihood of them not moving forward with you is like it goes way down. So like, if you really hate your competition that bad, and you think they're going to get this terrible experience, and that company is deceitful, whatever, but you're just going to let them go with them, like, really, like, so you must not believe. You either don't believe in yourself, or you don't like people. Because if you liked people and you believed in yourself, you would ask questions until they told you a yes or no.
Yeah, not make statements, listeners. Ask questions. Let the client make and create their own story from there. That's how you'll have the most impact and be able to help and guide those clients at the highest level. So, Ryan, thank you for this. And the main lesson here is that we, as sales guides, are responsible for helping our clients see what's there. Whether it's lighting or outdoor living, the possibilities. Remember, they're buying emotionally, justifying logically. So we have to make sure that we're working for both sides of that and understand that they can come up with their own stories for why they may need this. We got to dig in and go deep for that. And that's by asking great questions. And I love how you segued right into what our next topic is going to be next week, which is how to increase your price. And so much of that is going to boil down to, what do you think you're worth? So Ryan, thank you for coming on here. And everybody, I can't wait to unpack that with you next week.